Now that we've taken a look back at how we got here, it's time to spend a few minutes at the end of our show here today to talk about what the church needs to do post-Dobbs. And to join me in that conversation is my colleague at the Center for Biblical Worldview, David Closson, who happens to be the director of the Center for Biblical Worldview. David, good to see you.
Happy Friday and happy 1 week, Joseph, of living in a post-Roe America.
It is indeed much to celebrate, and I think those of us who are going to be celebrating the 4th are going to do so with additional enthusiasm this year. But David, you wrote an article this week also for the Washington Stand that I encourage people to go look up. Your suggestions about what the church should be doing post-Dobbs and post-Roe.
Right.
What's your advice?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. The first thing I said in the article is, Joseph, is that we need to just be thanking God. FRC led a prayer movement in the fall. We convened evangelical leaders and Catholic leaders, encouraging pastors to lead their congregations in prayer. Then we had another meeting in the lead up to the oral arguments where we had thousands of people around the country to pray, asking God to move on the hearts of the justices. And Joseph, my goodness, we serve a God who hears and answers prayer. And now that we live in a post-Roe world, let me just give you two things that I think every Christian, every church should be prioritizing. One is support for crisis pregnancy centers. The crisis pregnancy centers now for decades have been on the front lines of heroically serving moms in need and their children. I mentioned it in the piece, Joseph, but just in the last 5 years, 800,000 babies have been saved because of the work of crisis pregnancy centers. Those same crisis pregnancy centers, just in 2019 alone, provided $270 million of tangible goods and services like diapers and other things for these moms. And so I think every church, if your church hasn't adopted a crisis pregnancy center, I think that's a great practical way to serve moms in need. And the other thing I'll mention, Joseph, is I think every pastor needs to be preaching on the issue. Our colleague George Barna did a survey in 2020 which showed that 44% of evangelicals, so this isn't the broader population, but evangelicals, people like us, 44% believe the Bible is ambiguous in its teaching on abortion. Well, Joseph, as you and I have talked about, the Bible is anything but ambiguous. It affirms the personhood of the unborn child from cover to cover. So I think part of discipling and catechizing our people is preaching sermons, expositional sermons on Psalm 139, Luke 1, and other pro-life texts. So I think those are two really practical things that every church can do in this post-Roe world that we live in.
That's really good advice. And David, earlier in the show, I spoke with Mary Zock about what's next, and specifically in response to the abortion lobby and their prioritization of chemical abortions, both the risk that that represents and the looming political conflict and battle that will take place over that issue. But from your perspective, you encourage us to prepare for what's next. What do you mean there?
Yeah, I think we need to realize, Joseph, the pro-abortion lobby, their response has already, in the last 7 days, been fierce. Even when the leaked opinion came out, there was an assassination attempt on Justice Brett Kavanaugh. New York is already moving to now put in their constitution that abortion is a constitutional right in New York. So this battle is not going away. And so what I mean by preparing ahead, overturning Roe v. Wade has never been the goal of the pro-life movement. The goal of the pro-life movement is to make abortion illegal and unthinkable. And so really the work that we've been doing for decades now, we need to continue. We need to continue to vote our values. We need to continue to vote for convictional pro-life leaders. We need to disciple and catechize our people. We need to help mothers in need. This is the work, Joseph, you and I are on Twitter. We see people all the time say, pro-life folks really are just pro-birth. That couldn't be further from the truth. We need to keep doing the heroic work we've been doing for decades. And I think if we do that, the road ahead for the unborn and for all folks in America, it will be very bright.
That's exactly right. David Closson, we appreciate your time and your wisdom as always. Happy 4th to you.
Thank you, Joseph.